Motion in your step.
Motivation in your heart.
Hello, and welcome to today's Motion and Motivation podcast.
We've put together a study guide for everyone. If you need it, you can grab it from the video description. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going deep into Donald Trump's business career.
Before the White House.
Yeah, before he ever even thought about the White House.
Right.
We've got some excerpts from this book, Lucky Loser,
By
two Pulitzer Prize winning journalists
Russ Buettner and Suzanne Craig.
from the New York Times.
Yeah.
In this deep dive, we're going to really get into the real story behind Trump's successes, his failures.
Yeah, the whole picture.
Like, how did he build this empire?
You know, you always hear those stories about how successful he was, but this book really gets into
The
complexities and contradictions in his career and helps us understand how he became the man we know today.
It all starts with his dad,
Yeah. His father, Fred,
Fred Trump.
a very successful real estate developer in his own right.
Yeah, built tons of affordable housing units.
Thousands in New York City.
And the book shows just how much Fred shaped Donald's career.
He really influenced Donald's business career, giving him all these early opportunities and connections and financial backing.
But it's interesting, Fred wasn't just a silent partner.
Oh, absolutely not.
Like, he was really involved.
He was actively involved in shaping Donald's career.
Like sending him to collect rent and oversee construction sites as a teenager.
As a teenager. Imagine that.
I mean, that must have given him some pretty good hands-on experience.
Oh, yeah, of a very practical understanding of how the real estate business worked.
From like the bottom up.
From the ground up.
I wonder what was going through his mind as like a teenager.
I know, right?
Like being told to go collect rent.
Maybe he didn't love it, but he was learning the ropes.
Yeah.
From a pro.
And it makes you think, did those early experiences shape how he approached deals later on?
Right. Like, did that set the stage?
Trump's negotiating style.
His whole approach.
And the book talks about specific instances.
Yeah, like when Fred sent Donald to work on Trump Village.
The massive housing project in Brooklyn.
Huge.
Yeah.
And, you know, he probably had menial tasks.
Sure, but still.
But he was seeing the intricacies of these large-scale developments.
Exactly.
Like a crash course in real estate.
Not from a classroom.
Right.
From the real world.
Yeah, and that must have given him that comfort with risk.
Yeah, the ability to see opportunities.
That others might have missed.
Yeah.
And you see that as he starts to branch out on his own,
right,
he goes beyond the traditional real estate development.
Beyond just New York City.
And he sets his sights on the casinos in Atlantic City.
Those were big moves.
Yeah.
And it's striking because he pursued these projects that were considered so risky.
Outlandish even.
By many people.
Yeah. But he seemed to thrive on defying expectations.
And creating a buzz around everything he did.
Like that purchase of the Commodore Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
In New York City.
That was audacious.
It was this rundown property.
Most people wouldn't have touched it.
But he saw the potential.
He saw what it could be.
And get this, he negotiated a tax abatement from the city.
To help finance the renovation. So he turned what others saw as a liability.
Into an asset.
Classic Trump.
It really is.
He was like a master of turning things around.
And grabbing the public's attention while doing it.
And those early casino ventures in Atlantic City.
It's like they were foreshadowing.
Like looking back now.
They were a mix of ambition risk.
And that keen understanding of how to generate publicity.
He knew how to get people talking.
That's for sure.
And then you have the Apprentice era.
Oh, yeah.
The reality TV show.
Use that to build his brand in such a huge way.
And become a cultural icon.
It's incredible how he leveraged that platform.
To promote his businesses and his products.
And how it reshaped public perception of him.
He presented this carefully crafted version of himself.
To a massive audience.
Very different from the rough around the edges persona from the business world.
Right.
And, you know, I think that played a role in his political success later on.
It's like he was building this image.
A persona.
Yeah. For years.
And then he used it to his advantage.
And the product integration on The Apprentice was brilliant.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Like weaving the sponsors' products into the challenges.
Yes.
It turned the show into this marketing machine.
For his own brand and others.
And according to the book, it generated a ton of revenue.
For him and for the show.
It was smart.
I mean, imagine having a reality TV show.
Right.
To promote your business.
It's pretty amazing.
It shows how savvy he was with media.
And how he could connect with a huge audience.
But here's where things get really interesting.
What's that?
The book is called Lucky Loser for a reason.
Okay.
It's not all sunshine and roses.
Yeah. It reveals a more complicated financial picture.
Then he often let on.
Right.
Like we see bankruptcies, lawsuits.
Questionable business practices.
Yeah, it's not just that some of his ventures flopped.
No.
It digs into the struggles of his Atlantic City casinos.
Oh, yeah.
Those casinos faced massive debt
Right.
and filed for bankruptcy multiple times.
It makes you wonder about that whole self-made billionaire narrative,
It really does.
doesn't it?
Like, was it all smoke and mirrors?
I guess we'll see
Yeah, we'll see.
as we keep digging.
Stay tuned because we're just getting started on this deep dive into the world of Donald Trump's business career
We'll be back.
right after the break. You know, one thing that really jumped out at me in Lucky Loser is how Trump understood the power of fame itself.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. Like, he really understood how American culture was changing back then.
Yeah.
Just being famous.
Being in the spotlight.
Yeah, having your name out there became so valuable.
And he was in the perfect position to capitalize on that.
Absolutely, with his big personality and his talent for making headlines.
He was a natural showman.
It was a big shift from his father's generation.
Yeah.
You know, Fred Trump built his empire on hard work and practical skills, bricks and mortar, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
He wasn't interested in the limelight.
But Donald realized that attention equaled power and profit.
Exactly, and he knew how to get that attention,
And he was always making these bold claims.
even if they weren't always true.
Yeah, and you see that in his business deals, too.
He's a tough negotiator.
But he wasn't afraid to use intimidation or even a little deception to get what he wanted.
The book tells this crazy story about how Donald threatened to get some high-ranking official at the Port Authority fired,
Wow.
just because he didn't like how the guy responded to one of his proposals.
That's intense.
Right. And it shows how he operated.
Mm.
He wasn't afraid to use his connections or his influence or even just his bluster to get his way,
He was always thinking a few steps ahead.
playing a different game than everyone else.
And that pattern repeats throughout his career.
He was always pushing the boundaries
And bending the rules
or even breaking them.
to get ahead.
And it's interesting how that approach to business kind of mirrored his personal life as well.
You're right, the book talks about his relationships with women.
And you see those same patterns.
Like he was attracted to glamorous and successful women.
His first wife, Ivana, was a former model and an Olympic athlete,
It was like a real-life soap opera.
playing out in the tabloids.
Yes. Which, of course, just fueled his fame even more.
Exactly. And then there was Marla Maples.
Their affair and marriage was a huge media sensation.
It kept him in the headlines.
But behind all that glitz and glamour,
There were some serious financial problems.
the book reveals that despite his image of wealth,
He was actually struggling to keep his businesses afloat.
and it wasn't just losing money,
No.
he was inflating his assets
And manipulating financial information.
to mislead banks and investors.
It got pretty shady.
The book really lays out the details of his bankruptcies.
And it becomes clear he wasn't always playing by the rules,
He was exploiting loopholes
using creative accounting techniques,
to protect himself.
even if it meant hurting others.
It's a side of Trump that wasn't really public knowledge at the time.
But it's important to understand how he operated
It raises questions about his ethics.
and his trustworthiness.
So was it all part of some grand plan?
Or was he just impulsive?
It's hard to say.
The authors of Lucky Loser struggle with that question throughout the book.
It's clear he was a brilliant self-promoter.
And a master negotiator.
But he also thrived on chaos and conflict.
Like he was always playing this high-stakes game
And he didn't care about breaking the rules.
to win.
That's a great way to put it.
And that's what makes this so fascinating.
We're seeing the roots of behavior that would continue throughout his career.
And ultimately shape his presidency.
It's a reminder that to understand someone's present,
You have to understand their past.
and in Trump's case,
His business career gives us a glimpse into his personality
his values.
and his worldview.
And as we'll see in the last part of our deep dive,
Those patterns of behavior play out on a much bigger stage.
when he enters politics
Stay tuned as we explore how the apprentice era
and those questionable business tactics
and that carefully crafted persona
set the stage for Trump's rise to the White House. We're wrapping up our look at Trump's business career before politics, and this is where it gets really interesting.
like how all of this led to his later businesses.
And even his political career.
It's like we're seeing how it all connects.
Yeah, Lucky Loser takes us inside Trump's world at the height of The Apprentice.
He was a huge celebrity.
Yeah.
And he used that fame to build a whole empire.
Way beyond just real estate.
Oh, yeah.
Trump steaks, Trump vodka, even Trump University.
He put his name on everything.
And people bought it.
He knew that in this day and age, your name is a brand.
And a brand can make you a lot of money.
He was like a walking billboard.
Exactly. And the book says this really took off after he inherited a bunch of money from his dad.
When Fred Trump passed away, Donald and his siblings sold off most of the family's real estate.
So he had all this cash.
And he poured it into these new ventures.
That were all about his celebrity status.
Like he was shifting from building things to managing his brand.
It's an interesting transition.
And here's the thing. A lot of these ventures flopped.
Despite all the hype.
Trump steaks, Trump vodka, they all fizzled out.
And then there was Trump University.
Which ended up in that huge lawsuit.
And a $25 million settlement.
Yep.
It makes you think about that self-made billionaire image.
Right.
Was it all just an illusion?
Lucky Loser paints a picture of a businessman who failed just as much as he succeeded.
But he always found a way to spin things.
To make himself look like a winner.
Even when he wasn't.
It's like he created his own
And
reality.
he wanted everyone to believe it.
And that's what he did with his political career.
He used the same playbook.
The self-promotion, the showmanship.
Disregard for facts.
He knew how to connect with people.
Tap into their emotions.
Their frustrations.
So his whole business career was basically training for his presidency.
That's what the book seems to suggest.
It shows how he learned to manipulate the media.
Create a narrative.
And dismiss anything that challenged his version of reality.
The roots of his fake news rhetoric were there all along.
It's a wild ride.
A master manipulator at work.
It's a reminder that we can't just focus on the surface.
We have to look deeper.
At the motivations, the tactics, the patterns of behavior.
That shape a person's life.
And Lucky Loser does a great job of that.
It's a deep dive into Donald Trump.
The businessman, the celebrity, the politician.
It leaves us with a lot to think about.
What surprised you most about Trump's business career?
How do you think it shaped his presidency?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
The authors say one of the biggest takeaways is Trump's need to control the narrative.
To shape how people see him.
And they argue that continued into his presidency.
Affecting his decisions and his relationship with the American people.
It's a really interesting idea.
This deep dive has given us a lot to ponder.
It reminds us that understanding someone's past,
their successes and failures,
is key to understanding who they are today.
And that's the power of a deep dive.
It lets us connect the dots, see the bigger picture.
And understand the world around us better.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning.
And keep exploring the stories that shape our lives.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. That way you won't miss any of our updates. Also, if you think this video could help others, please share it with them. Thanks for watching and for your support.